Daniluk. I teach at Johnson Collegiate in Regina, and I mainly teach English and psychology. Okay, I have chosen a grade 9 assignment and a leadership project. So my grade 9 assessment, I'll send this to you later as well, but it's a co-created storytelling rubric that we use with oral storytelling. So in grade 9, the big hurdle for a lot of kids to cross is speaking out loud, but it's a big part of our English curriculum, especially moving away from traditional literacies into or traditional Western literacies into more traditional literacies and alternative forms. So I really want them to speak and to feel very comfortable speaking well in public, which is a big leap for a lot of kids coming into grade 9. But I find that if we can start that in grade 9, it pays off for the rest of high school. So I talk very openly about assessments with grade 9s, especially, and how they are going to be assessed on things and how to understand the assessments I give them. But by the time in the semester when we typically do oral storytelling, they've had enough of that practice that I want them to co-create a rubric with me. So we typically start by listening to good storytellers. Usually I have our elder Hazel Dixon come in, and I tell the kids beforehand, she's a phenomenal storyteller. You have a lot to learn from her. And I give them one of my favorite tools, sticky notes. They have 4 sticky notes physically set out in front of them on the desk, and that's it besides a pen or a pencil. And as they're listening to her, I ask them, write down, when you realize she's a good storyteller, think, what was it just now that made me think, oh, that's something a good storyteller does? So just write one thing per sticky note. You should end with 5, or end with 4, I guess. And the storytelling takes about an hour. She tells lots of traditional stories and reflects on them, things like that. When she's done, when we come back together as a class, I get the students to take their sticky notes and walk around and find someone who has something similar and start to clump the sticky notes together physically. And those end up creating basically the bones of our rubric. So the rubric that I have here this was completely created by students. Now, typically, I don't like to use really wordy rubrics. Like this is a lot of information, and if I just handed this to a student, it's very overwhelming. But this is something that they've all put together. So we started with sticky notes. We started sticking them in clumps on boards and naming the categories. So one category is voice, one is body language, and things like that. And then we start to I have a blank rubric that I fill out on the screen while they're watching, and I get them to tell me, so what was it about her voice that we think was good? So, they talk about, well, she kind of made it louder when it was scary, or quieter, this. So then, I try and interpret that for them and say, well, volume changes. Okay, so volume changes are important. And so we walk through the whole thing like that. We then take our draft of a rubric and we apply it to other speakers. And so I'll play videos for them of anything from a 3-year-old telling a story to Stuart McLean telling a story or something like that. And they mark on the rubric, how did this speaker do? Should we add anything, change anything? We also really discuss the levels. We use the 4-point scale a lot in English, of course. And I'm always asking them to consider, you're making this for you. So do you really want to put that in meeting? Elder Hazel is a phenomenal storyteller. Are you sure you want me to mark you on a meeting with someone who's been telling stories professionally for years? And so they start to interact with those. Once the rubric is made, they create and solidified. They start practicing their own story that they want to tell, and they're always using the rubric. So I say, today we're working on voice. Walk through your story, just focusing on volume. They can annotate their stories using some of the assessment. Like here, my volume will go up. Here, my timing, I'm going to pause because Elder Hazel paused when she was had a dramatic build. And right, the day or two before they're going to tell their stories to the whole class, they get together with a peer or two, and they ask the peers, can you check in this category? How would you rate me in this category? Because I either think I'm awesome, or I think maybe there's a room for improvement. And the peers give them 2 glows and 1 grow. So 2 things that were great, and 1 thing that, yeah, this is an easy fix for tomorrow. When you're telling your story, this is something you could do. And then they do the story. Sometimes I've had them actually predict what they are hoping for, or what they think that they can do personally by themselves, because it depends on the class. If there's a lot of anxiety about speaking in front of people, I let them mark theirs beforehand with what they know they're capable of based on how they've practiced. And then when I mark it, if I'm any lower than where they are, they can come and do their story to me privately after they've done it to the class, to show me that I am capable. It was just nerves. So the benefits of this have been like the most investment I have ever seen in any kind of public speaking. Knowing how they're going to be assessed takes such a burden off of their shoulders, and it makes it a little more technical. So they can break it down and say, when I'm speaking, if I make my voice go up and then I go down, that's a trick that storytellers use. And then when they get something back that says tone or pitch changes to indicate expression, they know for sure what that meant, because that's the thing that they had decided to practice.